Unfortunately, when somebody cries wolf, it sets a tone where people are going to be skeptical when somebody is really dealing with harassment and they're looking to report it.
This is America.
I have agreed.
These are animals.
America preaches integration and practices segregation.
Why didn't you say Mexico?
A rising tide of discontent.
The South will rise again. I have agreed.
We have contrasting visions about what America is.
This is America.
The next topic we're going to get into is the Jillian Wuestenberg and her husband and the confrontation with a black lady and her daughter. And we're going to play the video. It's like a 3-4 minute video. It is not for kids. So there is some adult language and obviously adult behavior. So we're going to go ahead and roll that now, and then we'll come back, give our thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments.
Wants to violate a 15-year-old.
No, I'm asking a question. She's a child.
She bumped into me when I
So
was
if she did something wrong, she needs to apologize. If she did
this
something
ignorant
wrong,
woman bumped into a 15-year-old,
correct?
and you're on camera.
Okay.
You're feeling threatened.
Okay, well go in.
No, Mom.
I got this.
You're blocking me from getting my car.
No, we weren't. No, we weren't. You're ignorant.
Go ahead, call the police. No, we will, but you're not going to sit there and violate a 15-year-old.
She's ignorant.
Do it, bitch. Do it. Go ahead. Do it. I want you to do something.
She's very ignorant.
Dumbass bitch. Yeah, I said it. You say something, I'll beat your white ass. Yeah, I will. Do something. Please put your motherfucking hands up.
Do something.
Please.
Who the fuck do you think you guys are?
Who do you
Who do your wife think you are?
You calling her name?
Yeah,
she did nothing to you.
Yeah,
I didn't. I didn't.
No,
you didn't. You're very racist and ignorant.
You're racist because you're calling
No,
her
you
name.
bumped it. She bumped into her.
Why would you bump into
You
her?
cannot just walk
Why
around
would you
calling
bump her?
white
Why
people
would you bump her?
racist. This is not that
Why
type
would
of
you
world.
bump her?
White people
Why
are
would you
racist.
bump her?
No one's
Why
racist.
would you bump her?
I
Why
care
did you
about
say
you.
sorry?
I care
Why
about
did you say
you.
sorry?
And I'm sorry if you
Why
had
did you
an
say
incident
sorry?
that has made
If you
someone
bumped
make
into
you
her,
feel
why
like
did you
that.
say sorry?
No one is racist.
If you didn't do
I'm
anything, why
sorry
did
if
you do
you
that?
had something like that happen.
Ignorant. Very. Mom, watch.
Get the fuck away from me!
You gonna get on her face.
You better get on my fucking face
Right now, get away.
Get the fuck away!
Get the fuck
away. Get the fuck away.
Are you gonna hit? You gonna shoot me?
Get the fuck away.
Oh!
Get away. Call the cops right now. Call them.
Oh!
Call the cops.
Get the fuck away.
Call the cops.
Get away.
She got the gun on me.
Call
He
them
hit me
now.
with the car. Call them. I'm telling. Get the
Call
license
the cops.
plate. Get the license plate.
Get
Get the license plate now. Cause you were never about to hit me with the damn
Don't
car.
you
about to hit me with the car? Both of y'all put the guns on me.
Yeah.
Call Richard back up to the police. Call Richard back up here now.
I got it.
Don't you fucking jump behind my
No,
car.
I ain't jumping on your car. What
Don't you
doing?
fucking jump on
Mom, stop moving. Stop, Mom.
Get the fuck back! Back the fuck up! No, you can't fucking leave.
Do you got all this on video? Yes.
Call the police. No.
Mom, stop walking.
Hello, police. Call the police. Can you come back to your call the police? Call the police. You fucking
They pulled the gun out on her. These white people, they're so racist. They pulled a gun out on my mama, both of them. It was a white lady and a white man. Yes.
So there's a lot going on in that clip, and it's rough. So I used to be a union rep, and as a union rep, if somebody that I represented wanted to file a grievance, I had to file the grievance for them, or I could find myself in trouble. Sometimes I get somebody that would want to file a harassment grievance, and when I looked and would investigate the situation, and this is somebody that's asking me that I've agreed to represent, but I've asked to elect me, and every now and then somebody would ask to file a harassment grievance. There's nothing there. There was just somebody there, like a supervisor, wanting them to do their job, and I always struggle with that because it's like, look, like there's real harassment that takes place in the workplace. And unfortunately, when somebody cries wolf, it sets a tone where people are going to be skeptical when somebody is really dealing with harassment and they're looking to report it. In my opinion, that was not a blatant case of downright like racism, right? Like that was not like some folks coming from a place of hatred towards somebody because of the color of their skin. The crazy thing is, I saw an edited version of that video first.
Yeah, that's the one I saw.
Yeah, I
saw the edited version, and Ayana said different than what I thought had happened. I'd be curious to what you meant by that. Did you see the 1 minute clip as well, Ayana?
I saw the shorter video, and I was fully expecting it to be like something different than what it turned out to be. Right? I thought that it was like somebody. Something happened. I'll say this, in my experience, and here's something that like I've had conversations with a bunch of Black people about, like in public spaces, like it has not been uncommon for me to experience white folk not wanting to say excuse me, right? Like you walking past them, they're taking space. Like I don't know if it's a cultural thing where they just don't want to speak or whatever, but like not saying excuse me, and that's something that it's happened so frequently that when I'm around other Black folk, we have conversations about it, right? So I don't know what happened. I don't know if that's the case there, and it was a situation where they brushed up against each other. I think everybody's on 10 right now anyway.
Yeah.
So something that probably would have resulted in somebody saying, you could have said, excuse me, 5 months ago. Now it's like, oh, hell no. I know you didn't just bump into me. You must have lost your mind, and I'd hate to think that people are like seeking out experiences to go viral or, put somebody or have their moment where they just put somebody all the way in their place. I hate to think that that's where we're going, right? Now I'll say this, like if you find yourself in a situation where somebody's tripping, then by all means that those situations need to be addressed, right? And I'm not saying address them in a crazy way. I'm saying like, do what's appropriate. Which is what? So if that's a situation and I have a 15-year-old daughter, right? If I'm somewhere and somebody like bumps into my 15-year-old daughter and like just totally disregards her, like I do want to address that and I do want to have a conversation about that, right? Now, I'm not getting ready to like attack somebody that's obviously apologizing, right? Like at a certain point, this lady was saying, look, like if that's been your experience, I'm not like hating you. I apologize, right? Or I'm sorry that's happened to you. And at a certain point, the mom threatened the husband and like she brought race into it. She was like, I'll beat your white ass. You know what I mean? It's just rough. Like I hate that happened. I don't want to give anybody, like I don't call wrong right. You know what I mean? Like I won't do that. You know what I mean? If it's me, if it's you, whoever it is. So she was wrong, right? But with the culture and climate where we are right now, everybody's on 10. You bring her child into the situation. You bring the race dynamic into the situation. You bring all the stuff that we've been watching, all the stuff we've been talking about. You put that, and she's viewing things from that lens. Like I'm not surprised at all that it happened.
Yeah.
At all, right? But I just say that, like, I hope that that's a lesson to all of us to kind of like check our own pulse, see where we are emotionally. So we find ourselves in a situation, we're not doing what we are asking the police not to do, right? Like everybody's asking the police to de-escalate situations, right? So like if I'm asking the officer to do that, I need to be willing and able to do that, or at least expect myself to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't de-escalate the situation. Those are my 2 cents.
I saw the 1 minute clip as well at first. That is just the lady with the gun out. And the caption was, another Karen, blah, blah, blah. It's just, when you see the whole thing, it's very troubling. It's very troubling. And it definitely, like with the context of everything else, I'm like, man, this stuff is going to, like, this is the kind of stuff and the way this is handled, and even some of the comments that I saw with people talking about quote unquote Karen, just kind of out of control. I don't think she should have pulled a gun either. I don't think that's the right move. At that point, like, if the lady like gets behind your car and isn't letting you leave, I definitely would have called. I would have called that one in. And as much as I would try not to call the cops in that situation, like, I think she's getting to the point where she's feeling threatened, and she's feeling the tension of everything else. And I think all of us are at this kind of heightened state of awareness, heightened state of kind of racial awareness, racial tension. And these are the types of things, if we don't start doing something about it, then these are the types of things that are really going to start ramping up, and they're going to end differently than that one does too.
I want to address the pulling the gun out as well, right?
Yeah.
And she pulled the gun out, she put one in the chamber, and she aimed it, right? So,
yeah.
Like, anything goes wrong, she sneezed, somebody bump her from behind, anything happens, she's getting ready to like take somebody out. That's a problem, right? So I don't want to give her a pass on that either. I understand it. Like, when me and Steve was having this conversation, the way I said was like, if I'm getting into a confrontation with somebody and I'm armed, like, you almost have to pull, like, take your weapon, at least have it in your hand, because if you get into a physical confrontation and you have a weapon on you, then everybody's weapon, right? Like, they have access to it as well. So I don't know if I would have had a problem with her touching it, pulling it out or whatnot, but like her like cocking it and aiming at somebody that the most the lady was going to be able to do was like fight her, right? I mean, not to make light of the situation, but she probably could use some. What was Ice Cube's dad's name in Friday, right? It's like she probably could use one of those conversations, right? Like,
I don't think they ever said. Well, they might have. The mom might have said his first name. Man, I can't remember. I need to use the bathroom. That's the part.
Put the gun down.
Is it Mr. Jones?
You win.
Down, right? You know what I mean? It's like you might need to, like, put your dukes up, put the gun down, you know, and she'll be all right. But anyway, like, I don't want to see anybody out there like physically assaulting each other. I don't want to see anybody getting shot or anything like that. But that's the reason we had these conversations, right? Like, we want to create a space where you can come get some of this stuff out, where you find yourself the person in the middle of situations.
And I think what people have been, one of the things I've seen people say, which is similar to you, she racialized the situation. So we view the world through racialized lenses anyway, based upon our own experience and stuff. But she really did a job to make this about race. And I think that is, we talked briefly, mentioned Jussie Smollett last week as in connection with the Bubba Wallace piece, and why that is so damaging for other, like, when you see stuff like this damages like the ability to be able to have real conversations, because then people are like always questioning, like, okay, but what really happened? Because you see stuff like this and you're like, oh man, this lady's crazy. And I think that really undermines our ability to have conversations with integrity. I'm curious what Safe has to say. Can we bring him on and see if he has any 2 cents on this as we get into, we're going to start talking about media bias. Safe, welcome.
Hey, good evening, fellas. How you doing?
Great, Safe. Glad to have you on.
What would I wish that I could see from the video? And I'm sure, obviously, they were outside the whole time. So obviously, what I would like to see eventually come out is any surveillance that showed what that bump looked like. I mean, if we're talking about, like, I just went around and I just touched shoulders versus me going in there and, smashing this little girl. I mean, obviously, as a parent, you're going to defend your child. And obviously, you might act on that in that situation. So to me, I would like to see, not that it really makes that big of a difference. End of the day, you point a gun for one reason and one reason only, and that's a shoot to kill, period. And I'm sure you guys been to the shooting range and all that good stuff. Never, even when a gun is empty, I mean, that you point it anywhere, you're not making that happen. So to me, that factor is, she has to dispute that she was in fear for her life enough to kill the individual, not to harm them, to shoot to kill. So that's where, for me, it gets a little extreme. And then, like I said, for me, I'm just curious to see what that bump looked like, because knowing how they were interacting outside, personally, I don't think it was a big deal, because if that was a big deal, then I might see some punches or something happening. So clearly nothing happened. It was just conversation that ended up to, a gun being pulled out.
Yeah. On that note, I would love to suggest that, anybody that's interested, check out Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me. It's a letter that basically a letter that he wrote to his son. And it has a lot to do with like America feeling like in control of Black bodies. What happened was he had a similar incident. He was, I think, in a department store, if I'm not mistaken, and there was a white woman that was like rushing through. She bumped his son out of the way and continued to walk. He, I believe, did something like touched her grabbed her by her arm, like challenged her, corrected her, and at a certain point, some other people, a white man in particular, came to her rescue. And he was saying nobody came to the aid of his son, right? Nobody cared about that, but everybody wanted to come to her rescue. So I think that there is some context back there that's historical, more than just in the moment, right? Where there is this fixation with America that they feel like they black bodies can be controlled, and one way is to call the police on people. So that's something I would say, that if you're not aware of that, I'm not surprised if you're not aware of that. But for the most part, if you're Black, you're probably very likely to be aware of that. So there's a lot more at play than just whatever that bump looked like, is all I'm saying. Between the World and Me. Thanks, Steve, for putting it in there.
Yeah, but I wondered the same thing. I think everybody wondered that, like, what actually happened leading up to this. I kind of read it like the lady was like pretty calm, trying to wait for her chance. Like I read that body language into like what's going on. But again, none of us can be there, and none of us really know like how anybody would respond in that scenario.